tribal or regional.
Because I have said that.
All right, time for us to take a look at the front pages of our newspapers this morning, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story there talks about unpaid tax. It says, bandits kill 4, abduct over 100 farmers in Niger. It has the riders that says 4 village heads in captivity, 1 killed. We are making efforts to rescue them, says police. Also, kidnappers kill 3 siblings, motorcyclists, after collecting 60 million naira ransom in Taraba. You also have crops spoiling in our farms. Military blames informants for attacks. You'd find all the details on page 4 and 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper. You also would find the pictorial there showing you shoppers outside Selfridges on Oxford Street during Boxing Day sales in London yesterday. You also have, beside that pictorial, we've been abandoned. Katina, Moto, and Pestles Cravers cry out. Carvers, rather, they cry out there. On page 8, you also see son sued for attempting to strangle his 72-year-old mother. On page 25, Lagos CP orders ASP 4 others detained for killing female lawyer. On page 25, you'll also find above the lead story, amidst 24 billion naira debt, FG criminalizes non-remittance of ticket cargo charges. That's on page 19. And also, my prison experience humbled me, says Nyame on page 10. Spain topples India as top export destination for Nigerian goods on page 20. And then at the footnote, you'd find man killed by phone snatchers while jogging in Abuja buried. You'd find that on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspapers. It's been 560 days. We still have 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birni Awuri in captivity, and also 1 student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 532 days, still in captivity.
Next, we'll take a look at The Nation newspaper, and it carries this major story on the front page. Disquiet in PDP over Wike's Makindi's others trip to UK. And there's a rider here that says G5 governors on retreat to decide on preferred presidential candidate. Moving towards the center of the page there, investors take 3 trillion naira on Nigerian equities. Local stocks bullish. That's talking about the stock market now. Towards the bottom of the front page, outrage trails killing of expectant lawyer by policeman at checkpoint. Details of that are on page 3. And the rider here that says how she was shot before husband and kids. That's according to a colleague. And Sanwo-Olu, IG and BA seek justice. At the very bottom of the page there, Kanu to politicians and businessmen stop all forms of violence in Southeast. And to moving towards the top of the front page there, above the masthead, unremitted 200 million naira check-off dues divide pensioners. Details of that can be found on page 7. And finally, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, food prices shot up by 29.00% within 12 months. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, so let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The lead story there, 2023, ease frustration as Nigerians queue for PVCs. You'd find also INEC upbeat on exercise. Voters demand improved modalities. Residents disagree over allegations of sharp practices. You'd also find NBA demands full disclosure, details of lawyers killing. You'd also find Imo PDP raises the alarm over plot to frame arrest candidate for insecurity. Nigerians reject 200% third-party vehicle insurance premium hike. Nigeria, let us turn a new page. That's according to Bishop Matthew Kuka. For Lagos to grow, Agberos must go. That's Gbadebo Rhodes. He is the governorship candidate of the Lagos State. You also have at the footnote there, NCAA cautions local operators on safety as bad weather disrupts flights globally. World Bank warns of imminent global recession, debt, distress. So these are some of the major stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning.
All right, then we'll take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper, and it carries this major story on the front page. CBN monitors 6,047 BVNs over suspected fraudulent transactions. And it comes with riders here that says Central Bank examines 28 bank customers' operations, 17.89 million bank accounts not linked with BVN, and 144 properties forfeited by fraudsters, looters for auction. Now that's the major story on the front page of the Punch newspaper. The pictorial shows different fund seekers in different places, actually in Lagos and Abuja, trying to get into the groove of the season. Towards the bottom of the front page there, students fault fee hike in universities demand review. Details can be found on page 25. And policeman kills graduate, Edo family begs IG. And 124 billion naira weapons imported in 4 years. Now this is according to a report. Going towards the top of the front page there, above the masthead, PCC kicks over governor's threat to dump Atiku. You can find that on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And domestic airfares soar by 97%. That is by the NBS. And details can be found on page 21. Some disturbing news coming from the IMF as the IMF warns Nigeria over dwindling oil revenue. And details of that can be found on page 19. And how Lagos policeman killed my pregnant wife. And that is according to the lawyer's husband. Details of that story on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this Tuesday morning.
All right. Let's take a look at this Nigeria. One of the papers we're looking at this morning. It leads with the murder story. It says, a murder so cruel, talking about the Lagos-based lawyer. Outrage over killing of female lawyer by trigger-happy corp. Sanwo-Olu, IGP Tinubu, Atiku condemn act, demand quick investigation. You'll also find Dangote retains top spot as Africa's richest man in 2022. Prices of food items hit rooftop. That's according to MBS. And then flood. NAS seeks 250 billion naira in intervention fund, calls for ecological commission. 2023 crisis as Umahi slams 5 million naira fine on campaign posters. World economy faces recession in 2023, says CEBR. And then at a footnote, again, Kuka slams Buhari's administration over corruption and nepotism. These are the main stories on this day, this Nigeria.
All right, then we'll look at the leadership newspaper. The major story on the front page is on the 2023 presidency. Tinubu Obi's men shift battleground to South-South and South-East. And riders here that says governors are supporting Labour Party started bearer, says Ohaneze. And Jonathan supporters mobilize for APC presidential candidate. Bala Mohammed alleges plot to rig Bauchi governorship election is another story on the front page of the leadership, and details can be found on page 7. While 1 killed, 45 abducted by gunmen in Kaduna. 3 die in Niger Republic, military helicopter crash is another story on the front page of the leadership. And deal decisively with terrorists, and that's Army Chief charges troops. Details can be found on page 11. Moving towards the top of the front page there, below the masthead, FG grants local ship owners zero import duty on new vessels. And at the very top of the front page, above the masthead, killing of Lagos lawyer, Atiku seeks urgent police reforms. Those details can be found on page 7. Then Sheikh Kabara, Islamic group to appeal death sentence, and that can be found on page 8. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the leadership newspaper.
All right, on First News newspaper, you'd find the lead story, 2023 polls. INEC reads riot act to politicians. Buy votes, risk 1 year jail, and then a 5 million naira fine. You also have APC blast Kuka for attacking Buhari in Christmas message. You'd also have airfare increased from 37,000 naira to 73,000 naira within 1 year. That's according to MBS. You also have 2023, Jonathan's men mobilized for Tinubu in South-South, Southeast. You also have Namdi Kanu seeks end to Southeast violence. Rahim, suspects faced orderly room trial. Nigeria's foreign reserve rises to $36.95 billion. Suspected jihadists kill 17 headers in northeast Nigeria. Slain Lagos lawyer was pregnant. Designer Toyin Lawani, and then also Obidati coalition reacts as Atiku Obi campaign posters flood Bauchi rather. At the footnote, you'd find Christmas cow kills Bayelsa community youth leader. You also have police sacks 7 officers in Imo over illegal checking of phones, extortion, others. Kidnappers kill 3 brothers, motorcyclist after collecting 60 million naira ransom from father. 2023, AU Development Agency demands Nigerian elections be held without bloodshed. These are the stories on the front page of First News.
Next, we'll take a look at the Daily Times newspaper, and it carries this major story on the front page. Murder of female lawyer. IGP orders speedy investigation, prosecution of indicted officers. And it comes with Riders Head. It says force leadership will not condone any inappropriate or unprofessional acts. Lagos police condole with family, friends of lawyer killed by a police officer. NBA demands more details from police on alleged murder of female lawyer. And still on the front page of the Daily Times, court threatens to jail Buhari Lawan Malemi over Loretta Onoche's appointment as NDDC chairperson. And details can be found on page 4. Cash withdrawal limits. NLC rejects CBN policy, says many Nigerians will be thrown into poverty. And details of that can be found on page 2. Food prices increased in November, that's according to the NBS, and says airfares rose by 97% in 1 year. And at the very top of the front page there, remain apolitical. Chief of Army Staff charges troops. Now, these are some of the major stories on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper this Tuesday morning.
All right. All right, so let's take perspectives to some of these stories, quite interesting stories. This morning we have Solomon Salmon. He is the Managing Director, Justice Pen Alliance, here with us to review some of the stories with us. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Ava, good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's wish you a compliment of the season, a Merry Christmas, and a prosperous New Year as we approach a new year. A lot of festivities, really, people traveling in and out of town, but here we are, of course, as journalists, to make sure that the TV is always on, and that's what we try to do. Let me ask your experience in the festive season. How did you spend it?
Christmas.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the reason for the season, as they say, is celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Of course, you know I'm a Muslim, but it doesn't really matter. Undoubtedly, both Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad, they were veritable role models. And I think what should be paramount while celebrating is sobriety. We should be sober and reflect on how they lived their lives. What lessons should we learn from the way they conducted their affairs. Sadly, we have lost the lesson.
All right, very paramount. The takeaway there is for us to learn the lessons and live by, the faith that we profess, rather than just mouth what we, profess and all that. So this morning, a lot of stories really, as the festivities are going on, we are seeing some very terrible experiences in some quarters, abductions here and there. We are seeing that 3 people were killed, after paying a ransom of 60 million naira in Taraba State. And a motorcyclist was also involved in that, and all that. And a bandit killed 4, abduct over 100 farmers in Niger. That's the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper. It's one killing too many, isn't it?
However, sadly, though, it's not yet whole on this issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Well, the government is trying its best. Whether the best so far is good enough or not remains to be answered. But going by what is still going on, we are not yet out of the tunnel. And it's unfortunate that life, sacred as it should be, is cheap, very cheap in this country. There is need for a change. And there is need,
that need
for the federal government too, or the security agencies to do more.
The sad thing is that sometimes some of these killings is not only caused by criminal elements, but sometimes even by law enforcement agents. People who are supposed to protect lives sometimes end up firing the shot at the very person who is paying for their services, And I'm talking about the lawyer, the Lagos-based lawyer who was shot by a police officer. We've seen a lot of reactions that have trailed that outrage on social media, and several public officials giving out their statements condemning that very act. A lot of people are wondering how this even happened. This is someone who, the police officer here in question, have been in service for 33 years. So he's not a greenhorn, so to say, in the service. How did it even happen? If you have any, information that you could share.
Okay. Honestly, my condolences to the families of the slain lawyer. But let me make it clear here that no one life is superior to the other. Life is life. It is sad that the woman was killed by a supposedly experienced policeman. While we still await further investigation or the result, what will be the result of the investigation, how it happened, because it's still sketchy. But even at that, I condemn in entirety the death of any Nigerian or killing by anybody. It is not only dastardly and despicable. It should be discouraged. And the IG should be up and doing. We would like to know the blow-by-blow account of how it happened, why it happened, even if, as usual, it is or it was another accidental discharge. Nigerians would like to know.
Well, there's this growing fear in some quarters that since it's an incident involving the police, and the police are the ones in charge of the investigation, that there's a possibility that it might be swept under the carpet, or information will be distorted and the rest of it.
No, I do not think that this will be the case in this matter. The attention of all Nigerians is on this. And mind you, like I said earlier, that no one life is superior to the other. The woman happened to be a lawyer. And you know what that means. The Nigerian Bar Association, I can bet you, will not allow this to be swept under the carpet. In fact, they won't allow any carpet
to be there in the first place.
Regardless. But let us be careful about this. Let this not be because she was a lawyer. Don't let us mix the fact or the issue that life is supreme. Life is sacrosanct. No one man has the right to take the life of another. Even the courts don't do that unless they have followed the due process. They always allow the rule of law.
There's actually another story on the Punch newspaper whereby a policeman is alleged to have killed a graduate in Edo State. So I think both stories are not getting the same traction because of the personalities involved.
The police. It's unfortunate that they are in the news for the bad reason. My sympathy to them and to the families of the demise. But let's stop this. Let's stop this. It is sad to discuss loss of life, especially in this festive period. It only means there is no Christmas will be merry. And chances are that there is no happy new year for the families of these people. May their soul rest in peace.
All right. All right. We are seeing a lot of hike in the prices of things. The NBS is reporting that domestic airfares soar by 97%. That's according to the NBS. And not only airfares here, we've also heard about, food inflation. I mean, we've been dealing with this food inflation for a while, but it just seemed like it's getting out of control. Is there a way to really control the kind of high prices that we are seeing these days?
Yes, there is always a way. I always tell people that there's always an alternative to anything. Let me quickly remind you that if it concerns the elite, it will be resolved almost immediately. The hike in airfare will definitely catch the attention of the powers that be, simply because it involves them. What concerns the average Nigerian or the downtrodden Nigerian is the astronomical rise in the price of foodstuffs. Foodstuffs. Quite many families couldn't even afford the usual Christmas rice that was hitherto taken for granted that this is the time for sumptuous meal. We should be concerned.
Some will argue that we are having it better compared to other parts of the world and that this is a global issue. If you look at a story on the front page of The Guardian, it says World Bank warns of imminent global recession and debt distress. That's also another story that has to do with the economy. So there's a correlation there somewhere. How do you think we are managing, this economic crisis in our own case?
You see, like they always tell you that politics is local. This one too is local. Regardless of what IMF tells us, we need to really, really face our peculiar situation. don't let us hide under this usual explanation or this that it is a global thing. It's because it's a global thing. So what? That we should live with it and understand that it is now part of our lives. Is that what we are saying? Let us please take good care of this astronomical rise in the price of foodstuffs. That is important. And of course, food is just a necessity. It's not a luxury. No matter what, man must work, as they know say at times. Say man must work. We must eat. And federal government should take it as one of the priorities, that the welfare and well-being of Nigeria is paramount. It is not negotiable.
We're still talking about the economy. There's a story here on the Punch newspaper, and the IMF is warning Nigeria about the dwindling oil revenues. We've always heard this song and dance, especially by our politicians, when it comes to Nigeria's economy, that we'll diversify, we'll diversify, we'll diversify. But at the end of the day, we're still stuck with oil as our main source of revenue. And right now, we're hearing that these revenues are actually dwindling. And it doesn't seem like we're making any move to do anything elsewhere apart from to stick with the sinking ship of the dwindling oil revenues. Is there something we need to be doing at this moment?
Ibrahim,
So,
the future belongs to those who sees possibilities before they become realities. It is unfortunate that by now we are still talking of revenue from crude oil, when the world is leaving us behind. In about 10 years' time to come, you discover that fossil oil and other sources of energy will have taken the front page or stage in such a manner that we may discover that we are not getting revenue again from crude oil. But my fear has always been this, or my regret has always been this. What precisely have we done with the accruals, with the monies gotten from the sale of crude oil? By now, we should be thinking of other sources of revenue generation. Cocoa House was not built with oil money. So, Ahmadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto, did not build ABU and many other things he did. In fact, it's from the Kano Pyramid, the granite. Ditto in the southeast. What I am really saying is this: it is time to go back to the land.
One of the major
Farming.
One of the major factors, or I would say one of the major issues that has affected our food production, especially in recent times, is the issue of this insecurity that we've been talking about. Now, for instance, if you look at the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper, it says, you know, over 100 farmers have been abducted in Niger, you know, and a lot of farmers are unable to go to their farms. The writer here says crops spoiling in farms. And that's not even to mention the issue of the flood that we experienced this year and all of that. But I want us to focus more on the impact of insecurity on our farming and our food production. How best can we deal with this? Is there a way that we can guarantee safety for farmers, different from what we are doing now? Allowing everyone to just go to the farm and, you know, puts his or her life at risk, and at the end of the day, the person is abducted or even killed.
When you talk of government, the major reason for being there is to guarantee or security of lives and property. Any government that fails to do that or that fail to do that is not worthy of being called a government. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. You know, when you talk of food and the basic needs of life, only the living need food. When you are there, you don't need food. So government should ensure that they secure Nigerians. We are too vulnerable. Do you know that nightlife is gradually coming to an end? This festivity, people will have loved to hang out, as they speak, and enjoy themselves. And I don't think that it's too much of a thing to do, reasonably. But how can you do this when there is palpable apprehension everywhere? You go out, you are not too sure that you will come back. It's either kidnappers, bandits. Some of my friends are not even willing to come home again. I was in Kuje day before yesterday to see a friend who came from UK. And my son was to join us. And I was describing my friend that my friend that I told you lives in UK. He said, please, you want them to come and pick me? Can you be that? He doesn't even want people around to know where I came from. That is how vulnerable the society is now. Prone to kidnapping by bandits, hired killers. Honestly, we have been running commentary on this. And they will always tell us the bandits have been decimated. That is Lai Mohammed's language, decimation. The government is trying. No doubt about that. And we know that this is an unusual situation, and this is a problem that has lingered on for so many years. There is the need for the government to do more.
All right, there's a story here I saw on the first newspaper. This one is talking about the festivity and how the Yuletide is being celebrated. It says, Christmas cow kills Bayelsa community youth leader. I saw that story, and sad as it appears, you know, it's also awkward, really, when you have these experiences. So here is a young man who, with his friends, decided to put resources together to get a cow to slaughter for the celebration. And then the cow went rogue. And, you know, before you know it, attacked, you know, this person in question, and eventually led to his death. I believe that this is an experience that is, you know, that happens every now and then in communities and all that. Are there safety measures that we can take? Are there ways that we can, you know, control this in a way that people are safer? There are people who are professionals in doing this, the butchers, you know, they're professionals in doing this, but sometimes you have these animals just, you know, go bonkers, and before you know it, a life is involved.
The rage of the cow, it is unfortunate. But did it happen in an abattoir?
In his residence.
In his residence. This is one of the things we are seeing. We take a lot of things for granted. Is it really, really good that we take a cow or cows to the family house for them to see before we slaughter it? Honestly, it's unfortunate it happened. But then what we are still saying is this: we do not care a hoot about lives. How come a cow, which ordinarily is not in the natural environment again, When cows, when they go in hundreds or even as few as 50, they feel secured. You see what I'm saying? They feel secured. But when a cow that's used to being in company of other cows finds itself alone, clearly he knows that
There's danger.
danger is lurking around. I don't know why we fail to appreciate certain things. You think these animals too, they don't have any modicum of intelligence or intellect? And you think they are not aware that self-preservation is the first law? It is unfortunate that we are analyzing this psychologically this way because it has taken somebody's life. But then, what are the takeaways?
But shouldn't be there laws guiding things like this? I mean, like where you can actually keep an animal safe?
That was what I told you. That was what I said. That was my starting remark, opening remark about it. We are too lackadaisical about things.
Is there a law about this, on this?
Even if there is,
As to where to kill a cow?
I
Whether
doubt if,
at an abattoir or in a residence?
my dear, there are some impotent laws.
Unwritten.
It's like taking somebody to court for smoking. Do you know whether the judge just finished a stick of cigarette, or the policeman will rather look at you as unserious if what matters to you is that the man smoked in public place? There is a law. Isn't there a law? It is more observed in flouting it than in keeping it. It's unfortunate that we have no reason to a level that we can say we are human beings. Is bigamy not part of our laws? For those who are Christians. Have you heard of anybody being jailed for marrying the second wife? These are impotent laws that may not work in this climate.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Salomon Salami, the Managing Director, Justice Penn Alliance, for joining us on Daybreak this morning and giving us insight into some of the stories that we highlighted this morning on our front pages. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to be here. You guys are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Nigerians are proud of you.
Thank you. We
I'm
appreciate
proud
that.
of Trust TV.
All right. I appreciate that.
We appreciate it.
It's the television to watch now.
It is. It is. All right. Thank you so much.